The 2000s, the last good decade, some might say. Easy access to the World Wide Web, but not too much. Technology that tried the rule of cool more than the rule of work. Food with flavourings that might kill you, but it was way more delicious, so that's fine. But it was also a fascinating cross-section in history for games. Not only did we have the four nations in harmony for 4 minutes, the decade also saw the 5th, 6th and 7th generations. You could even argue this was the final decade of gaming before you got nickel and dimed for every penny, though there were signs. So join us as we take on maybe our hardest task ever, and that's trying to pick the best games from every year of this whipper of a decade. To make things even harder, we're only choosing one game per franchise as the number one for each year. Right, hold on to your hairlines as we go back a quarter of a century. The first year of the millennium and the last proper year for the N64, PS1 and Dreamcast, 2000 went out in style with games like Jet Set Radio, Final Fantasy IX and Phantasy Star Online. Even PC got in on the action with the game-changing immersive sim Deus Ex. The N64 had the last laugh though, as 2000 plays host the worthy follow-up of the best reviewed game of all time, which is The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask. Trying to follow up a masterwork like Ocarina of Time might seem like a daunting prospect. If this was art, it'd be like trying to ask Da Vinci to make Mona Lisa 2. Or like asking me to write Fortnite Lego How to Farm Eggs 2. No real difference there, is there really? While the exploration, combat and overall gameplay is much the same as its predecessor here, Majora's Mask uses a framework that's incredibly ahead of its time. Instead of adventure that you can tackle at your own pace, Majora's Mask has Link try to save the world in 3 days before the moon crashes into the ground. Of course, you can then travel back to the start with all the knowledge and equipment you've gathered, meaning you need to keep running through the game multiple times in order to succeed. Add in the new features like masks and transformations, as well as a darker edge with arguably even more memorable character designs, and Majora's Mask offers everything that Ocarina of Time did and more, making it a perfect sequel and just a great start to a great decade. The first proper year for the PS2 internationally, 2001 also marked the release of the GameCube and the original Xbox, with all three consoles uniting to prove that gaming had moved forward in a big way. Halo redefined first-person shooting, and Super Smash Bros. Melee and Animal Crossing proved that Nintendo will always be the champion of social-led gaming experiences. But the PS2 had an absolute banner year in 2001. From the debut of games like Devil May Cry, the pivot to 3D in Grand Theft Auto 3 that would begin its juggernaut-like ascension to the most profitable series of all time, to all-time classics like Final Fantasy X and Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty, the PS2 was the killer app for the year 2001. Funnily enough, it would still be Konami who'd take the cake for best game of 2001, but it wasn't for MGS2 as much as I kicked and screamed and demanded it, as in our restless dreams we still see that down. Yes, of course, it's Silent Hill 2, the game that taught us all that the phrase "till death do us part" has an early opt-out clause. Silent Hill 2 follows James Sunderland as he receives a letter from his long-dead wife beckoning him back to Silent Hill, only to find that the town is filled with both people with tortured pasts and a smattering of demons that look like they're jonesing to punish you for your sins. This isn't a fun game in the traditional sense, but it proved that Resident Evil didn't need to be the only survival horror standout in the genre. With storytelling that basically changed video games forever, Silent Hill 2 is a foundational bit of media, but only if you've got the stomach for some of its grosser details. I mean, look at these camera angles, ugh. So now that we've left the safety net of what we've already covered on this channel, if you want to see the longer versions of those 2 years, they are on the channel, go watch them. Things on this video have become a lot more difficult. And we're already seeing how the one game per franchise at #1 rule makes things pretty interesting. So the PlayStation 2 did have some banger sequels this year, like Grand Theft Auto, Vice City or Onimusha 2, while introducing new franchises like Ratchet & Clank, SOCOM and Sly Cooper. Xbox wasn't slouching either, with The Elder Scrolls 3, Morrowind, Dead or Alive 3 and Jet Set Radio Future all competing for your attention and cashola. Still, we have to admit that the year 2002 is the year of the GameCube. If every year was more like this for the GameCube, who knows what could have been. Even with just the GameCube version of Soul Calibur 2, Super Monkey Ball 2 and The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, the GameCube would make you the envy of everyone on the playground. Even Super Mario Sunshine was very good too. Shit levels notwithstanding. But if you want the best of what the GameCube had to offer in 2002 though, it is Metroid Prime. Nintendo had so much success bringing their 2D franchises to 3D on the N64 that many were wondering how the exploration-focused Metroid would work in the third dimension. The answer? Flawlessly. Somehow Nintendo managed to publish one of the best first-person shooters of the 6th generation, with Retro Studios' take on Samus Aran having a timeless aura and atmosphere that's still just incredibly haunting. Exploring the planet of Talon 4 is generally quite frightening and a bit chilling at times, so that's because you also might get face-hugged by a Metroid. Great abilities, cool weapons and beautiful cutting-edge graphics made this a GameCube statement piece, and the sands of time have simply left this beauty alone. Compared to the sheer tidal wave of quality games that are to come in 2004 all the way up to 2007, 2003 feels kind of lacking by comparison. It's definitely no slouch with dozens of excellent games across every platform, it's just that it feels something like a calm before the storm when looking back through history. The GameCube was buoyed by brilliant exclusives like Mario Kart Double Dash, Billy Hatcher, our beloved F-Zero GX and Beautiful Joe, and the PS2 played host to games like Jak 2 and Dark Chronicle. Meanwhile, third-party games like The Simpsons Hit and Run, Beyond Good and Evil, Tony Hawk's Underground and Prince of Persia The Sands of Time ensured players on all platforms had some quality fun. Ultimately though, it'd be the Xbox that earned the last laugh in 2003, thanks in no small part to the release of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. If BioWare weren't on your radar with PC releases like Baldur's Gate or Neverwinter Nights, this made them the arrow for all devs to point towards. An RPG powerhouse, BioWare were practically given creative liberty when making Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, considering it was set 4,000 years before the events of the prequels. While the deep and engrossing combat is up there with some of the genre's best, it's the story and the agency the player has within it that makes KOTOR such a firm fan favourite. What better universe is there for making good versus evil choices than Star Wars, after all? With plenty of jaw-dropping revelations to be had throughout too, or at least one very big one, Star Wars KOTOR offers way more than just name recognition. Here's hoping whatever is going on with this remake and series gets sorted soon.
May the light of lights be with you!
Right, here we go. Any of these next 4 years would be a contender for the best year from a pure video game standpoint in any decade, so the fact that they're on the bounce is a bit much. All 3 major consoles were giving it right large, with Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door and Pikmin 2 for the GameCube, along with Halo 2, Fable and Ninja Gaiden for the Xbox, but it's the PS2's library of games for this year that's frighteningly stacked. MGS3, GTA San Andreas, Gran Turismo 4, Onimusha 3, Dragon Quest 8, all are Game of the Year contenders for pretty much every year, but the winners this year were PC players thanks to the release of a huge FPS game, and that was Doom 3. Only joking, only joking. It's better than a lot of people give it credit for though. It's a decent game. The answer is obviously Half-Life 2. Valve already revolutionised FPS gameplay with the original Half-Life, but the sequel upped the ante in a way that other game developers haven't been able to copy in the years since. And maybe that's why they've been afraid to try it in the years since as well. Something Half-Life 3, Counter 3, Scared, etc. Gordon Freeman's battle against the Combined Forces merely serves as the backdrop to one of the most immersive shooters ever made, thanks in no small part to a genuinely brilliant physics engine that the game actively encourages you to mess around with. Using a gravity gun to launch buzzsaws at zombies will never get old, though we're not so keen on having to wait for the gondola lift to arrive. All those barnacle thingies, they're also gross. From gunplay to exploration, physics-based puzzles and combat and even vehicles, most developers struggle to include one of these features at a high level. Valve managed to have their cake and eat it too. Come at the awakening. 2005 might have been the start of the 7th generation of consoles with the Xbox 360, but it'd take a year for it to really shine, with the only notable launch games being Condemned, Criminal Origins, that is a banger, and Ridge Racer 6, also a banger. Oh, and Cameo, which managed to outshine Rare's other Xbox 360 launch game, Perfect Dark Zero. Not very hard, what a weird plasticky game that was. But the PS2 stayed the course and carried on killing it. Listing the amount of excellent games that launched in this year alone would take up an entire video in itself, but we'll make special mention of Devil May Cry 3 Dante's Awakening, a game that redefined the character action genre, and Shadow of the Colossus, a genuine example of games as art. Oh, there was also the debuting God of War this year too. We didn't forget it, there was just too much competition this year. It's a hard video to make. Still, the PS2 nearly missed out on the best game of the year, considering Resident Evil 4 was meant to be a GameCube exclusive. Sure, it would launch on PS2 by the end of the year, but RE4 was essentially the GameCube's swan song from Capcom, a company that had been not so quietly carrying the console's library. After about 5 games of fixed camera survival horror adventure and a few spin-offs too, Resident Evil 4 overhauled the formula into a more action-focused third-person shooter. The result is one of the tightest controlling shooters in history, and a game that's aged as well as Paul Rudd. Returning to the shoes of Leon S. Kennedy, albeit in a new, more siesta-orientated setting, was huge for Resident Evil fans, but RE4 also managed to serve as a decent entry into the series for newcomers, with a new plot largely separate from the events of Raccoon City. Listen, I could go on about RE4 all day, and I might one day do a video on it, but this could have been Game of the Year any year this decade, quite honestly. The Xbox 360 reached its first full year in 2006, and the reasons to own one were definitely piling up. Dead Rising, Oblivion, Prey, Gears of War, and Blue Dragon were all stellar examples of the next generation. 2006 also saw the release of the Nintendo Wii, which would soon become a mainstay in the TV cabinets of all grandparents in Britain. Wii Sports and The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess ensured that the Wii would have a great launch, but again, the PS2 simply showed its undeniable staying power in the face of its competition. Of course, it helps that Sony were dragging their feet on the PS3, which snuck out at the end of the year with the excellent Resistance Fall of Man, but the PS2 library in 2006 reached all-time great levels. God Hand is the cult hit masterpiece that we all know and love today, while Persona 3 and Bully offered 2 different takes on high school social life, both of which are highly entertaining. Once again though, it is Capcom that take the nod for the best game of this year with their Zelda-inspired Okami. Well, Clover's Okami, who Capcom would then shut down a year later, but still. The dungeons, the overworld exploration, the way abilities are doled out through the game, all of it is singing from the same hymn sheet as Zelda, but it's done with a magic and grace that hasn't been seen since Ocarina of Time. Sure, a lot of that charm comes from the game's unique celestial brush mechanic, which has you drawing on the screen to use certain powers years before the Wii U became a thing, but the graphics, sound design and humorous story all combine to create an adventure that's truly unmissable. Quite frankly, the fact that they managed to release a game with such a timeless art style as Okami on the PS2 speaks to the incredible versatility of Sony's second console. If the sequel is half as good, it will be pretty great. What a crazy year. Please don't get too mad at us for this one. Let's show you why this was so hard. The first year to really feel like the next generation of consoles had become a necessary upgrade, the 360, PS3 and Wii are littered with exclusives that were genuine system sellers in this year. The PS3 offered Uncharted and MotorStorm, while the Wii U had No More Heroes and the phenomenal Super Mario Galaxy. On the third party end, everyone could enjoy games like the first Assassin's Creed and Skate. Meanwhile, PC players were eating thanks to Team Fortress 2 and Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl. Even the PS2 was still chugging along, with God of War 2 offering some life to the old girls somehow. Despite all that though, it was the Xbox 360 that carried pretty much all the momentum in 2007. From dedicated exclusives like Crackdown, Beautiful Katamari and Lost Odyssey to time console exclusives like Mass Effect and Bioshock. The Xbox 360 was the place to be in 2007, especially via Xbox Live, and nowhere was that felt more than with the two biggest games of that year, Halo 3 and Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. COD 4 is inarguably one of the most influential games of the 2000s and of all time, kicking off the industry's love affair with brown and grey military shooters. For our money though, Halo 3 is simply the better, more complete game. Halo 3 had way more modes for the multiplayer and a ridiculous amount of tools for players to make and share their own maps and modes. As a game, it is still a masterpiece of first-person shooting to this day, but as a moment, Halo 3 felt like the first attempt on consoles to create an infinite game, sustained by user content in the back half of its life. It's an idea that might have been morphed and mutated into something more nebulous in the years since, but back then, it seemed so cool. Halo 3 signalled the end goal that games like Fortnite are still chasing. Shame Microsoft seemed to forget that along the way. Now we've hit 2008, and while there's still plenty of great games out there, it doesn't quite reach the same heights as previous years. The PS3 offered exclusives like Little Big Planet and Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots. You might be surprised that I haven't jammed MGS4 in here as a huge MGS fan, but for me, it just needed about 3 more hours of actual gameplay. Little Big Planet did also lose a lot of its appeal when the servers were murdered. Meanwhile, the Xbox 360 had Gears of War 2, Fable 2 and Ninja Gaiden 2. It was the year of 2s for the 360 apparently. Somehow the PS2 was also still kicking in amongst the top contenders with Persona 4, though Atlus releasing that game on PS2 back then feels like a bit of an own goal. Throw in the overhated, but I'm only really saying that because Subspace Emissary was dope, Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and each console offered worthy exclusives, but in the end it was the third-party releases that ruled this year. Fallout 3, Rock Band 2, Burnout Paradise, Dead Space, and a small indie game called Grand Theft Auto 4. Maybe you've heard of it. Choosing GTA 4 now versus Vice City or San Andreas earlier on might seem wild, we'll admit that, but GTA 4 is the highest reviewed game of the lot and felt like an incredible technical step forward. Many at the time bemoaned the lack of RPG-esque systems in GTA 4, but the reality is that GTA 4 was the blueprint for Rockstar to create a new breed of open world games, ones that allowed for more interactivity with the world and its NPCs. It's amazing how much heavy lifting some realistic-ish ragdoll physics do in making your game feel more alive. The fact that the Euphoria engine was only ever used in Rockstar games, The Force Unleashed and obscure American football game Backbreaker feels criminal. Add to that an actual story that's dark and emotional at times while staying true to the series' humour, and the 16-player online modes that were a precursor to the GTA Online we have today. GTA 4 should be regarded as both the first step in GTA's second evolution, but also as an incredible game in its own right. Question: despite the official release date of 2011, if we want to be technical, Minecraft has been available in at least public alpha since 2009. So should we have considered it here? Or were we right to maybe save Minecraft for a 2010s video? If you fancy it, let us know down below. As for actual game releases in 2009, third-party games were strong, such as Batman Arkham Asylum, Borderlands, Dragon Age Origins, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Assassin's Creed 2, Bayonetta, Street Fighter 4 and Left 4 Dead 2. Exclusives for the Wii and Xbox 360 were carried by Mad World / Punch-Out and Halo 3 ODST respectively, but the PS3 was finally playing catch-up. Infamous, Demon's Souls and Killzone 2 were all great, but it was Uncharted 2 that really stole the year. While plenty of people enjoyed the first Uncharted, it wasn't the all-conquering Goliath that catapulted Naughty Dog out of Crash Bandicoot's shadow that it would become. Uncharted 2 was that game for many, and all it took was a more dramatic opening set piece. Sure, having a gunfight on a small boat, seeing a German U-boat in the middle of a jungle helped make Uncharted 1 enjoyable, but the slow reveal of Nate's situation in the middle of a train wreck is a core memory for many PS3 owners. It was that kind of set piece, level design and narrative direction that led Uncharted to become more than just a simple Tomb Raider knockoff, and would even then force Tomb Raider to show more Uncharted-like qualities in its reboot trilogy years later. We might never see Naughty Dog return to the world of Uncharted. Well, they only make one game every 10 years now somehow, but even if they did, it's 50-50 on if they'd even be able to match this absolute classic. Outro gang, that was probably like the hardest ranking we've ever had to do here. There's a lot of arguments at CVHQ, as in the Discord server. Do let us know what you agree with and disagree with down below. Also, if you guys really do want the best games of the 2010s video, please do let us know quite enthusiastically down below. I've been Jimmy for Cultured Vultures. It's been good to have you, and thanks for watching.